Welcome to the Home Designer Landscape and Deck webinar. My name is Emily and I will be presenting for you today. We offer many different home designer programs. I'll be using the Home Designer Professional today. And most of the tools I use will apply to the architectural and suites. Only a few will apply to our Essentials program. And of course, none of our landscaping tools are in the interiors version. And I'll show you where you can find the full comparison charts between our programs on the website at the end of today's webinar. So today I will be starting with an existing plan. We have a Hillside Contemporary plan on our website as a samples plan for you. So I'll be using that today and we'll be creating our terrain. So I'll show you a couple different ways to create your terrain perimeter. Then we'll get into our elevation tools and modify the elevation so we can have a sloped lot. We'll then touch on our deck and patio tools a bit, work with our fencing, drop in some different pathways, and work in a pool area, creating a custom pool and hot tub. And then we'll get into our plant chooser, get all of our landscaping placed with garden beds and so forth. So today, here is our Hillside Contemporary plan that I already have open. And you'll notice we're on our first floor here. So this is the floor plan for the first floor. But let's get into a 3D view and see the full design here. I'll use my perspective camera and use the full overview. And this will bring up our complete structure here. So the first floor is kind of this main level down here. We also have a basement level and a second story level. If I go around to the back area, you'll notice that our garage and entryway are on the second story level. So we'll be building our terrain on the first floor level and sloping it up and down to meet all of the different elements that we need to in our structure. So let's rotate around again, and I'm going to start out by building our terrain. And I like to tile vertically, so you'll notice that we have two different tabs across the top. I'll just click on my floor plan tab and drag it down a bit, and that will enable me to tile vertically. And then I can use my scroll wheel on my mouse to zoom in or hold down that scroll wheel to pan as well. Underneath our window drop down, you can also control how things are tiled if you'd like to specify in that regard as well. Alright, so now that we have our floor plan in front of us here, the easiest way to build our terrain perimeter is to go right up into our terrain drop-down and click on Create Terrain Perimeter. So that will automatically place our terrain, and I'm just going to zoom out slightly here. I'm going to hit my spacebar on my keyboard. That's a shortcut to get us to our Select Object tool. And with our terrain perimeter placed, you can single click on that and you'll see editing handles, so you can drag those out and move all of the different locations as you need to. Or you can be a little bit more precise and use our dimensioning tools. I like to use our end-to-end dimension, and we can just click and drag out that dimension, and that will locate to our structure and the side of the terrain perimeter. So we can be a little bit more accurate with our setbacks here. So I'm just going to work around the structure here and place all of those dimensions. Now I'll single click on my right edge and single click on the perpendicular dimension. We can then type that in. Let's bring that out to 42 feet. I'll put the foot marker in there and hit enter on the keyboard. So we'll just work our way around, single click on that terrain perimeter edge, and then the perpendicular dimension. We'll bring this into 20 feet. And this guy will do out to 19 feet. And for our backyard, or what I'm calling our backyard today here, is going to be, let's bring that out to maybe 50 feet. Alright, so now we have everything set here. I'm just going to single click on these dimension lines and hit backspace on my keyboard. So I'll delete those for now. You can also modify the shape of this. So if I've selected the bottom edge here, you'll notice that we do have some different controls in our editing toolbar at the bottom. One is change to line or change to arc. So I'll change this line to an arc, and then we can modify the arc of that, and we can also continuously modify and move this as desired. So that is one way to bring in your terrain. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit further and show you another method. If you have survey data, you can use just our CAD lines to put in each line of your terrain perimeter there. So just click and drag out a line, single click on that, open it up for specification. You can change the length of that line, and then through the angle area you can type in the quadrant bearing information. In Home Designer Pro we also offer a little bit more advanced option. You can change your number style, so you can change that to decimal, you can change that to the quadrant bearing, and so forth. So a couple different controls within the Home Designer Pro giving you a little bit more accuracy there. So from there you can continue working and continue using those line tools and so forth to draw out your terrain perimeter. So these will just be lines at that point. Once you have all of your lines drawn, connected, you can go down to your editing toolbar again, and you can convert that polyline. So when there's no existing terrain perimeter like we've already created, and they're connected, you can modify and change that to a terrain perimeter in there. So I'm not going to get into too much more detail there. We do have a help article on our website, and I'll show you where you can find that at the end of today's webinar as well, so you can find a step-by-step guide through the survey data input. Under File, you can also find an import area where you can import the terrain data and GPS data, and that will bring up a wizard for you to guide you through that import. So pretty helpful to get that correct information into the software. Now once we have our terrain perimeter created, let's open that up, and I wanted to make sure that our automatic checkbox is unchecked. We are going to modify all of the different elevations on this. So currently this is the level that that's positioned, so we're going to be working off of that number today. And then through the different areas here you can control your smoothing and so forth. The higher the smoothing, it takes a little bit more processing speed on your computer for the rendering. Next is our clipping. So you'll notice that we have the checkbox for hide terrain intersected by building. You can see that right here where our building is located, it will automatically cut the terrain hole in there for us, so our terrain will not be intersecting into our structure. Then through our panel options we have contours, so you can change the intervals for the different contour lines that are automatically generated for us. And again, go through all of the different materials and so forth as you need. You can modify those right in here or through the material painter, either way. Alright, so that looks pretty good for now. Let's get into our terrain elevation tools. We have our elevation point, so you can put just a point down. You can put lines down, splines, so the curved lines, an elevation region, or a terrain break. I'm going to use our elevation region. So I'm just going to drop down a couple different elevation regions, and then we're going to open those up for specification and modify the specific elevations of each one. So right now I'm not being too specific, just getting kind of different regions set for different elevations that I'm going to be placing here. So maybe we'll place one right in here. We're going to have a large area of flat terrain for our pool area in this spot. So now that those are placed, I'm going to open them up for specification. and we are going to change our elevation. So for this one, I'm going to bring it down slightly. Let's bring it down -20 inches. Hit OK. And these will start modifying as we modify our elevation. So we'll open this one up. We're going to bring that one down a little bit further, so -52 inches. And then for our top elevation region, we're going to open that one up, and we're going to bring that one up quite a bit. We'll do 140 inches on that. All right, so let's rotate around our 3D view and see what's been created. So our elevation looks pretty good down here, and it's going to slope up right up to our garage area. So that looks pretty good as well. It is cutting off our window, so we're going to have to change a little bit of elevation there, but it will drop down below our window, and it looks like there is some terrain coming into our kind of basement patio area. So we'll need to address that one as well. So let's work with an elevation line and bring our terrain down just a little bit over on this side. So I'm going to just zoom in here and use our elevation line to create this custom spot. So I'm just going to click and drag towards our window, and that will modify. It's a little close. Our different elevation lines and regions, if they're too close, it gets to be a very sharp kind of slope there. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit, and that will smooth out our slope a little bit for us as well. So I always like to have the terrain regions pretty far from each other, so the program will automatically slope between those two, and it gives a nice gradual effect. Alright, well, we have that placed, so let's work on this front area here and create a terrain hole for this spot. So on our first floor, I'm not able to see this basement level and how that is shaped. So I need to use my reference display tool, which is up in Tools, Reference Floors, and Reference Display. However, it looks like this is referencing our second story. These are the roof planes here. So I'll single click on this number 1, so the floor that we're on. So we're currently on floor 1, and I would like to reference our foundation level. Alright, so now I can see that shape, and I can get into my terrain tools again. Instead of using the drop down today in Home Designer Pro, we have a toolbar configuration for terrain. So that really enables me to be efficient with all of the different tools that I have in front of me here. So with our terrain feature, we can get into our terrain hole option, and then I'll just click and drag out a terrain hole, and you'll notice that that has been placed. However, I need to reshape this. I'll single click on this entire rectangle, and then in my editing toolbar, I'll single click on the break line tool, and then I'll just break that and move it back. And you can also hold down Control on your keyboard, and that will kind of free up any snapping that the program wants to bump or snap into other objects. Just hold down Control on your keyboard to remove the snapping temporarily. Alright, well, it looks like that's cleaned up here pretty well, so let's zoom around over to our garage area and work on our kind of patio entryway area. So I'll uncheck our reference display. We have a toolbar on the right hand side within Home Designer Pro, so we have a shortcut for that reference floor display. With our terrain, everything that we're building on the terrain, like any driveways, all of our terrain features that we're going to be doing landscaping, I'll be on floor 1 because that's where our terrain perimeter is located. But for a deck or a patio, this is an actual structure, just like your rooms in the house. So we need to be on that level, so on level 2, in order to create our patio on our second story here. So we're going to focus in on this spot right here, our entryway, and get into our deck tools. Through our decking options, we have a straight or a curved railing option. We can also do, or here are the railing options for the deck. Above, these are your interior railing tools. So these two are for your deck railing. You also have the deck edge or a polygon shaped deck option. So that's a really quick and efficient tool for polygon shapes. I'll be using our deck edge here. So with the deck edge, you can just click and drag, and this is just like any other wall. You need to connect it to another wall to create your room, and this will automatically place our deck without any railings. So let's zoom into our deck area here a little bit. And we can see our planking and all of the joists and so forth have been created. So I'll single click on this room. Let's open that up for specification, and it will automatically be specified as a deck since we used our deck tools. Under the structure panel, we can control our ceiling heights and so forth. If we wanted a roof over this room, with a single click we can make sure that there's a roof over this room. And then underneath our deck panel, we can control a little bit more information here with our planking. So we can change the overhang, the plank width, the gap between the planks, and the plank direction. So right now our planks are running parallel to kind of this entry wall. You can uncheck that and change the plank direction, just the different degree here, if 90 degrees, or if you want to place those at a different angle, you can do so right within that plank direction, or place some border planks around there as well. The Home Designer Pro gives you even more flexibility with structural controls. So the joist width, spacing, and direction can be controlled within the Home Designer Pro version, as well as the further supports. So you can change your beams and posts and footings, different post styles and so forth to get more accurate in your materials list in your design. And then you can get into materials here as well if you wanted to change those up. Alright, so what I would like to do is actually create a patio area. So just have a concrete slab here instead of a deck. So since we already have our deck placed, we can easily just open up this room. Underneath our room type, I'll change this to a porch, and then underneath the structure, I'm going to uncheck the roof over this room. Since we changed our room type, there are some different defaults that it will default to, and that is one, so I'll just uncheck those and select OK. Let's see what happens here. So you'll notice that our slab has been placed, but we need to resize that slab because it is floating there for us. So let's open that back up, and underneath our structure panel, I will get into my edit for my floor structure, and let's change that, maybe 16 on that. Select OK, and that will automatically uncheck the defaults here for your ceiling and your floor because it's going to bring it up on the structure a little bit there. But I want to keep those the same, so the slab will go down to our terrain. So I'll select OK from here, and there we are. Pretty easy. So next let's add some stairs on here. So underneath our build tool, I'll click on my one-click stair option, and I'll single click right in front of that room. When you are right in front of that space, it will automatically locate to our room here and to the terrain. So it put the correct number of treads down for us. Let's resize this a bit. We'll bring it out to either side of our porch here. And then we're going to open that up for specification. I would like this to just be a concrete step as well. So underneath our style, I am going to uncheck open underneath and open risers. And then for our tread, I can just remove our tread overhang. And I don't need a tread thickness here, so I'll just put 0 there as well. And then through the panel options, we can get into our railing panel and add a railing onto this if we would like. I'll select OK there. And now that has been updated. Let's use our material eyedropper here in our 3D window. We'll use that material eyedropper, single click on our slab, and then apply that onto our steps. With our railing here, we do need to connect it onto this side of our porch. So I'll single click on that wall, open that for specification, and right now it is specified as a railing, but it's also specified as invisible. So there is a wall there to define the space, but nothing is built for a railing. So let's uncheck invisible and select OK. So now we can see the railing. And let's modify our materials. So again, in our 3D view with our material eyedropper, I'm going to single click on our trim, and let's apply that onto our railings here, and the newels, and the balusters. Alright, there we are. So we have our entryway all complete. Now let's drop in a driveway and a sidewalk to connect. Our driveway and sidewalk will be placed on the terrain level. So let's go back down to floor 1. Underneath our terrain, I'll select our road and sidewalk. We'll do our driveway area. Just click and drag that out. And again, underneath our road and sidewalk, I'll do our straight sidewalk here. And we'll just click and drag that over. And in our 3D view, it looks pretty close. Let me just bring it over slightly. And there we are. Okay, so we have our entryway all completed here. In our 3D view, let me just rotate around slightly. This is a pretty steep slope here, so I want to create a barrier with our fence. So let's get into our fence tools. With our fencing options, I can just click and drag out a fence here. However, that is not the correct material or style that I'd like to use today. So you can open up your fence individually, or if you have a different style that you would like to use throughout the rest of your design, you can get into your default settings and change our fencing. So that will be underneath our wall option and fencing. So we can get into our rail style. Right now this is a panel. So the panel is an option that we can choose from in our library. So let's change the panel. That's going to be under the newels and balusters, the panels, and we'll get into our library here. So through the library, this is in our core catalog, so our standard catalog that you can find within our software. I'm going to get into our ironwork options and just choose a different option here, select OK, and now we can see that in our preview. But we do need to change our newels here. So let's change the width on those to maybe 2 inches. And then we can also change our materials. So our fencing is a metal steel option. So I'll get into the newel, select material, and underneath our plan material, which is in Home Designer Pro, we can see what is already being used in our plan. So I'm going to go down to M for our metal steel here and select OK. So everything matches there. Okay, so now our default fencing has changed. So let's delete this fence that we've already placed. Get back into our fencing tool, click and drag. Now our new fence is placed there for us, so we can just continue drawing these out. So it's great to work with your default settings. If you have a standard type of fencing or even cabinetry that you would like to utilize, and then we'll just get over here, drag it out a little bit, let's have it a little closer to the structure there, and maybe do a jog over here. Okay, so we have our fencing placed. I'm going to rotate around in our 3D view. And let's place a gate at the top here. So I'll get right back into my library area. This time I'll select my library browser. It's the little button with all of the books here. And I can find a gate through our core catalog. So that will be in our architectural, our fence options, and the gates. And I'll select the folder so I can see all of the different options here. So I'll select this wrought iron gate option and bring that onto my floor plan, and then click and drop that in. So this fence is on our terrain level, which is on level 1. So our door wants to be on level 1 as well. However, let's open this up and modify the floor to bottom. And that is, let's see, our terrain height was about 140. So let's bring it up there and see how that locates. Pretty close, but let's bring that down just a little bit here in our 3D view. And let's match materials as well. So select the material off of our fencing and apply that to the gate. So now that we have our gate in place, I'm going to rotate around again in our 3D view. And we are going to focus on kind of our pool area. So I'm going to move my camera in our floor plan view, come on to this side, and move it right over. So on our 3D view here, you can see we have this sloped area and then kind of our flat area for the pool. So I am going to bring up an image here to kind of give you an idea of where we're heading. So we're going to start working with our terrain feature tools to create our kind of the concrete sidewalk pathway down here and the rest of our pool surrounds. And we'll also be using our terrain feature options to create our pool. So let's get back into the program here. So I'm going to start out in our 2D view, and I'll simply select the terrain feature tool. So before we use that terrain hole, and this time I'll just be using the rectangular feature. You also have a spline option, so you can do nice curved options or kidney shape. So I'll single click and drag this out. So we'll have our terrain feature there, and that will automatically default to just a concrete material. Within the library, we do have many different kind of gravel options, paver options, so you can change the material of these very easily. Back in our floor plan view, I'm going to click and drag out kind of a terrain feature for our pool area. And I'll leave a little bit of a border around here so we can do a garden bed. And at this point, let's resize our feature. So I'm selecting the bottom line, and I'll single click on our perpendicular dimension, and let's bring this up to maybe 48 feet. Hit enter, and that will modify for us. And I'll just connect these two up together. And this is a pretty hard corner here, so let's soften that out a bit. I'll single click on our main terrain feature, and then single click on the break line tool. So we're going to break a line on either side where we would like it to be kind of positioned there. And then I would like to break it in the middle. So then I can single click on that portion, bring it up a bit, and then let's curve this line. So I'll single click on this edge, and then single click on the change line dash arc. Now we'll create our arc for us that we can then manipulate. Now that we have our base down, I'm going to start working with our pool area. So we'll get right back into that rectangular terrain feature. And I'm not going to be too specific here, but let's just click and drag out our kind of pool area. And that looks pretty good. Maybe we'll make it a little bit larger here. And bring it over. And then I'm going to single click on our break line tool and break it just so we can modify the shape here and bring that down slightly. Alright, and you'll notice nothing is changing in our 3D view. It's because this is on the same level, the same elevation, it's the same material, so it's just being applied in the same area. So let's open this up, and I'm going to change our height. We're going to drop this down. So this is going to be the kind of bottom pool, the whole shape of the pool. So we're going to drop this down maybe 4 feet. And let's get into our materials as well. And instead of concrete, I'm going to open up my materials here. And I already know the name of one of the tiles that we have. You can also right click on one of these items and show in browser. So then you can be brought to the tile area and see all of the different tile that can be applied. So I'll click on that option, and there we go. So you'll still see nothing has happened. So we need to clip one of these options. So I'm going to single click on the larger terrain feature, open that up, and select the clip overlapping terrain features. So now it will clip over that area, and now we have our entire pool exposed. If you'd like to have a bit of a edge, kind of a border area here, let's use the same exact shape. We're just going to copy and paste this in place. So we have an exact replica here. Now I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to change our height to 0 and select the clip overlapping terrain feature, because we are going to drag this out a little bit. And instead of just single clicking and dragging each component out, I'm going to use our concentric move option. Underneath our preferences, we can get into our edit behaviors, and for our concentric move, we can have this jump in 4-inch increments. So I'll select OK. And now that that's specified, I can hold down C on my keyboard to activate the concentric mode. So just hold down C on the keyboard, click and drag, and that will bump those out at 4-inch increments. And there we go. So you can see that we have a nice border around our pool. Now let's talk about some water. I'm going to click on our main area again, copy and paste that in place, and then we're going to open that up for specification, and I'm just going to do a -6 on that, get into our materials and find a water. So I'll just search for water here. This will bring up anything that has the kind of term water in there. I know that we have our water under some numbers here. So number 1 looks good for me. Just to give you an idea, this is going to be in our materials. landscaping, and water. Okay, that looks great. So I'll select OK, and that will be applied. And you'll also notice that it's pretty transparent. So in our 3D view, I'll single click on our Adjust Material definition, click on that material, and underneath the Properties panel, we can change the transparency. So let's bring that down a bit. So now we have our pool space created. Now let's drop in some different stairs. So we can create our stairs with our slab tool. So I'm just going to click and drag out just a slab here, and that's going to be floating in our kind of space here. So in our 3D view, before we adjust that, I want to use my material eyedropper, single click on our tile, and then single click on our stair there. So let's open this up for specification, and I want to change the thickness on this to be 12 inches, and I want to bring that down, let's try 86 inches there. Select OK, and we can see it in our pool view here, but I'm going to get into a different view. It's a little bit more accurate. This is our cross-section elevation camera. So I'll just click and drag towards our stair, and we can see our slab, and it's a little bit low. So let's bring that back up. And then I can just copy and paste in place, have a replica there, and then move that up. Let's have our elevation and our floor plan. So I'm going to click on that tab and bring it right over, and there we go. So now we have those two in place. I'll single click on, hopefully that top one will move it and make sure. There we go. Then we'll just copy that in place and bring that up and resize that, and we'll be all set there. So very easy to use your slab tool to create those kind of stairs in here as well. So now I'd like to create a hot tub area. You can go through those exact same steps, or I have one in my library already, because you can use what you've already created. Just click and drag a marquee around everything. So just click and highlight everything. And then at the bottom, we have a Make Architectural block. That's going to be in Home Designer Architectural or Pro, but you can block this together and then add it to your library if you would like to use this object in the future. So I already have a hot tub that I've created, so let's get into our library. Alright, we'll open up that library browser, and underneath my own library, we have a user catalog area that you can get into, and I have a hot tub already created. So I'll single click on that object and then just drop it right into my design. And I'll select it and move it in. So it's a little smaller than I would like. So let's just explode this so we can use our explode architectural block, and then zoom in and we can modify all of the different components on this. So I'll just single click on the edge there and drag that out. Maybe we'll have a little overhang there. And we'll just keep working. And the last one. And there we go. So very quick and easy. You can drop those in. Let's match our materials here. Now we have our hot tub area and the pool area. So let's accessorize our pool area a little bit further. In my library, I also have a few different objects that I'd like to drop in here. So these objects are from our core catalog as well as our bonus catalog, and I've just copied them and dropped them in here so I can just find those quickly and drop them in. So we'll have our pergola area over there. And then I also have some lawn chairs, and you can find those right in our library very quickly. So I'll just rotate that around and bring those over a bit. And then one more, our table. And I'll just drop that in. So if you wanted a few more pool accessories, let me just bring you right up into our library here. So underneath our exteriors, we can find additional exterior options for irrigation, landscaping, outdoor living, so additional cooking options, outdoor furniture, patio accessories. You can also get into the recreation for fire pits, or here is some pool, spa, waterfront accessories here that we're going to get into. So let's get into a pool ladder, and I'm just going to drop that in here. So yep, I do want to drop that in. It's not really placed in the correct location. Let's flip that around first and then drag that right into the pool area. There's that. And we'll drop in a floating pool chair into our pool. And yes, I'd like to drop it right in. And then we can rotate that around and be all set. Alright, I'm going to close out of our library here quickly just to give us a little bit more space. So I'm going to start working with our garden bed options, and these are very similar to the terrain features that we were using. So for the garden bed, I'll just click and drag that out. Use our break line tool to reconfigure the shape of that. So we'll break it right in that intersection and then bring it over. And then I can single click and drag that corner down, select this edge and make that an arc so we can match that up with the arc of our kind of pathway there. So very quick and easy to drop in a whole garden bed area within that space. Now let's get into our plant chooser and select some different plants. I'm going to open up my library browser first because that will bring up the different plants in our library browser. So let's just collapse all, clean this up a little bit here. Underneath our terrain, we can get into our plants and the plant chooser. So this will help narrow down what we would like to place in our design. So we can choose a common name. I'm going to look for a lilac bush. You can also search by type, a subtype, your needs in here. I am in North Idaho. So North Idaho is about 5 or 6 hardiness zone. If you're in a different area, just select from a different region. But I have my hardiness zone all figured out here, so let's change those hardiness zones to 5 and 6. Then you can also get into your flowers and foliage, the height, and any other specifics that you'd like to narrow down. At this point, that's all I need to do. So I'm going to search, and that will bring up the lilac bushes that are compatible with my area. So I'll select one of those, and that will bring it up into our library browser here. So we have an idea of where that's located. So that one looks pretty good. Next, let's look for roses. So I'm going to look for a rose and search again. And there is our rose area. So this will really help you find where these are located in the library. Here's another one that I would like to place in as well, so I'll expand that out. So that will get us started. I'll close out of our plant chooser here, and let's start out with those lilac bushes. You can go through and choose the different options, and I'll just drop a few of these in here. And then we can also scroll right on down to the rose options. And you can search through each individual folder This one looks pretty good, so I'll drop a couple of these in as well. And then we'll also drop in a tree. And I have found one through the library, and I've added that to my own custom folder here. So we'll just select the sumac and drop that into place as well. So pretty quick and easy to drop and place all of those in. You can also, just like I did with the pool, select all of the different objects, block them together. I have created a block that I'd like to place around the pool. So let me get into my floor plan. I'm just going to drop this in and then we can move it after it's placed in here. So I'll single click on that, bring it right in by holding down Control on the keyboard. That will eliminate the snapping. And then we can explode that architectural block. And there's a floating item here. I'm just going to delete that. But you can single click on each individual component and modify those individually after you explode that architectural block. Then there's one more kind of feature I wanted to show you, kind of an efficiency feature. I'm going to select this bush and I'd like to place that in my plan here. And I'd like to kind of have this as a border that goes all across the back and side of our pool area. So instead of continuously clicking those down, in Home Designer Pro we have a transform replicate. So I can make, let's try 15 copies, and I'd like to move them in a negative x delta. So we'll do negative 30 for our spacing. Select OK, and that will bring those out. And I'm just going to copy a few more here. We'll copy those, and I'm going to just put those onto the other side. And then just drop in the remaining few to connect those up. So very quick and easy to drop in your plants and configure your landscaping. Let's do a few additional trees over on the side here. Kind of bring the height into play. Do one more large tree over in the corner there. And you can also resize very easily. So I'm going to just drop in another one here. And I'm going to resize that, make it a little bit smaller. So it might be a different age. You can just drop that in. Alright, well, let's close out of our library here and out of our 3D view, and I wanted to show you a different 3D view that we can take. And this will be our full camera. So I'm just going to click and drag to our focus, so our nice outdoor living space here. And we are located on the first floor again. To get a bit of an aerial view, I'm just going to go up a level, and that will bring us up. So a very quick response there. And we can rotate around, and you'll notice in this view we have a backdrop. So you can add your own backdrop to complete the scene. And through our library, I'll just show you quickly how you can apply that. Just open up the backdrops folder. You can either get into land, so we have quite a few different options there. I'll just select a sky option. If you have a nice hill that slopes down, you don't have a backdrop over there, you can just place sky in your backdrop. You can also import your own custom backdrops into the space as well. So just import that into the program and apply it like I did today. I wanted to go over a couple different renderings with you. Here's a great render of our deck framing tools. Home Designer Pro will give you the most customization over your framing for your decking. So that's a great program if you're looking for the structural control. And here's another visual over that structural control with your joists, and then additional panel options that you can find through our library. Here's a great patio area. We do have terrain wall tools, so you can build terrain walls in the program as well. Here's another pool option and another pool rendering. This one is an architectural block within our library, so you can even use this and just drop that into your own design very quickly. Here's another great rendering with the terrain walls and your stairs and applying the different materials onto the stair or onto the tread area as well. I also wanted to bring you over to our website. Underneath our products, you can find all of the different product options. You can download a free trial version if you haven't worked with the program yet or you're just interested in the new versions. We do offer a free trial download for you to check out. Underneath our User Center, you can find additional training through our training videos, additional webinars. Our samples gallery is a great resource for you. I have used our hillside contemporary design and customized my own landscape to fit that design. You can also download many more sample plans here and work with those existing plans to get jump started with your own designs. You'll also find additional catalogs and content download options for like the bonus catalogs for the additional accessories and landscaping and so forth to expand your library. If you're interested in connecting with other home designer users, we have a Home Talk user forum. It's a great resource to talk with other users, ask questions, share ideas. It's a great kind of forum to connect. And then underneath support, you can find additional information underneath our knowledge base. So this will contain many different help articles to walk you through different projects. And I'm going to search here for survey data. This is going to bring up how to draw a plot plan using your survey data. Great resource to learn more about developing your own custom terrain perimeter and defining that within the Home Designer Suite, Architectural, or Pro version. If you have any questions, continue chatting those into Stephanie today. She'll be on for a few more minutes, so ask her any questions in regards to our webinar today, or if you have questions about which program might be right for you, or give us a call. We're here to help you out, get you into the right program. We can also help you through email, so sales@chiefarchitect.com is a great option for you as well. I also encourage you to check out all of the other resources on the website to learn more about the software. And we do offer a 30-day money-back guarantee on new purchases or upgrades, so you have a 30-day window after you own the software to make sure it's the right fit for you. Thank you so much for attending today. If you have any further questions, let us know and we'll help you out. Thanks so much. Have a great day.